What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Shadow Talk, Digital Shadow's weekly threat intelligence and cybersecurity podcast. It's kind of a quiet week this week. It's only me and Alex Giraku joining me. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. As if you and I aren't enough, right? We can make it work.
No, I mean we're all that's really necessary. I mean we don't even need Rick. Don't tell him I said that though.
Yeah, he won't listen to this anyway.
He's dealing with some sick children. It sounds like they are not having a great time.
And by extension, neither is Rick.
Yeah, neither is Rick. So that's fine. So we had an episode that I think published this week. It was either this week or last week. Late last week? I think it was early this week. That was with Eliza May Austin of Ladies of London Hacking Society. That one was recorded over in the UK with a few of the UK peeps. I think JC was on there, Victoria, and Richard Gold. So that was a really good one. So be sure to check out that episode as well. So why don't we just dig into this week? Alex, are you ready for this week?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
You're pumped. Okay, so this week I actually published a blog that was about the NCSC's recent threat trends report. So NCSC puts out like a weekly threat trend kind of, it's just kind of like what happened that week, like week in review type of thing. And they've been doing this for a couple of years now, and they just put out, and I think it actually came out like a couple weeks ago, but they just put out one that covered a few months time span. So it was between, just make sure that I have this right. It was between October of last year and then April of this year. So, and this is the first one that NCSC has put out that's kind of like this. So I thought it was an interesting thing to look at. And, it's a good report to kind of analyze and pull relevant information from, because it is the UK, it's UK centric, UK specific. So just like we've done stuff with the FBI IC3 annual report, which is, obviously heavily geared towards the US, it's good to get another perspective on the threats that are going on. There were kind of two, in the blog I cover three main areas, but I wanted to cover two of them in the podcast today. So let's start with like Office 365. So I think one of the things that I found when I was originally kind of looking into writing this blog, just how many users there are for Office 365.
What, it's over 155 million, right? That's a lot of people.
It's huge. And I mean, like if you look at something like attack surface, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very broad topic, but like just how many people are actually using this one specific service. And if an attacker is to go after it, that is their whole pool of potential victims.
And it's not just for emails too, right?
Yeah. So like there's, everybody thinks that Office is related to email, but it's not necessarily only Outlook that's, included in that, or the only thing that people use within the Office 365 suite. So you have things like SharePoint, which is like a document management type of instance that you can set up. You can also use OneDrive, which is like straight document management. There's also, like backup files for Word, backup files for PowerPoint. I say backup. Some people can just straight up use the online functionality only.
Just as a cloud service.
Yeah, exactly. So all that stuff could be on there. Contact lists, all that stuff can make up the Office 365 suite. So if you were to break into somebody's, Office 365 account, you could have potentially a whole lot of information on that one specific person. So in this situation, kind of reusing credentials is a pretty big issue. I mean, Office 365, something that a lot of companies use, obviously, it can be tied into Active Directory. So say somebody gained access to your Office 365 account, and just hypothetically, you use the same password and login for your business computer, and then somebody tries to gain access to it that way. That's a very real potential there. So that's Office 365. Again, I think it's one that it's a topic that gets covered a lot, and I think it's a very real kind of exposure point that a lot of people should take into consideration, but not just the email aspect of it. That is part of it, but that's not all of it.
especially because it's used by such a wide range of organizations too, right? You have smaller organizations and you have the really, really big ones too. So it's not limited to a specific subset or niche type of user.
But yeah, and I mean, like we said,
it's very broad
with the cloud stuff. I mean, you don't have to buy a whole bunch of licenses and install it on a bunch of computers. You just buy the one enterprise license, and then you're using that across all of your machines just through the cloud. You don't have to install anything, and I think that makes it a lot easier to use. So, but the ease of use is what could also expose you for threat actors and stuff like that. So that was one of the trends that the NCSC had seen as attacks on Office 365. One of the other things that we'll cover that we've talked a lot about, and I think we have a pretty fair understanding of it in general, is ransomware. So the report lists a couple different ransomware trends, a couple different ransomware variants, I should say, that have been observed attacking various entities over the reporting period. And that included Ryuk, LockerGoga, and Bitpaymer, all campaigns that were observed during that time.
I mean, Ryuk is something that it feels like it's been around forever just because of how widely it's reported on. We see attacks with Ryuk fairly often, right? It's one of the more common ransomware variants that's out there currently. LockerGoga is perhaps more interesting if you look at it in the context of what time period they're looking at here, because that one we first saw that a couple of months ago with the attack against Altran, the French company. That was pretty high profile, and that was one of the first instances of LockerGoga being used in an attack against an organization. And then, of course, you also have the attack against Norsk Hydro, which famously,
I was just about to say, for some reason, I thought that was Norsk Hydro and not Altran.
Yeah, so Altran came a couple of months before the Norsk Hydro incident, but both were pretty high profile. But since then, even though this report only covers until April of 2019, we haven't really had significant LockerGoga activity from off the top of my head that I can think of since then.
Well, I do have technology sitting in front of me, so I just Googled it real quick because I was looking up.
Technology is usually better than my brain, so.
And I mean, the top results are all from March and April of this year. So that is kind of an interesting point. I would like to see, going forward, not to be critical of this report by any means, but maybe more timely, like around the actual time period where it would be coming out would be up until that point. Since this is a little bit outdated at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, that's why the weekly reports are also useful, because it gives you a more up-to-date perspective as to what's going on, kind of like how this podcast does.
Exactly. So one other thing that they also noticed is that they've been seeing those three specifically different variants being distributed by Emotet, TrickBot, and Drydex. All those botnets showing that they're still active. And it's interesting. I say that it's still active, or that all of those are still active, but Emotet, again, around April of this year, up until when this report, kind of covered, was pretty active, and then it went dormant for a while.
Up until now.
And then, I mean, literally, yesterday? Sometime this week, I'll say, just to be on the safe side.
Recently.
Emotet, the botnet, has started back up, and they started sending out different phishing emails. They've been trying to deliver malware variants. It kind of went away after the coverage period for this NCSC report. But, now that it's back, we've actually seen some of the phishing emails ourselves, like within Digital Shadows. They were using kind of a very tried and true method of sextortion to try and get people to open up the emails and install that malware. One other thing kind of after the report's timeline is GandCrab, which is a big...
Love some GandCrab.
Love me some GandCrab. It's kind of like a big topic to go into, but just the fact that GandCrab basically shut down, right?
And as far as I'm aware, we haven't seen any new infections. There are probably still some systems that are infected by it, but I mean, the FBI released a master decryption tool for it up until versions 5.2, I believe.
Yeah, 0.2 or 0.3, something like that, yeah.
So the most up-to-date ones. So unless someone comes up with a new version of GandCrab, if the source code was leaked or something, which wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities, then I think it's pretty much done for now, because the operators claimed that they had already obtained $2 billion due to GandCrab, which I have
You think
doubts
that's legit?
about, I don't really know.
I mean, $2 billion is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
I mean, I guess it's possible.
GandCrab was pretty huge.
It was pretty huge, and it was a ransomware as a service. I guess when I first saw that number, I was thinking that it was the actual authors / operators, like a close-knit group of people who were like, yeah, we got $2 billion. But if the more you think about it, it's like, well, this was being offered as a service across the globe. So like, maybe. I don't really know if there's going to be a way that anyone can ever verify that. Yeah.
I don't know, but most importantly is that we really haven't seen much of GandCrab since.
Yeah. Which kind of leads us into the next point. So kind of in the time that GandCrab has been gone, a couple other variants have become popular, including Soda no Kibi and Nemty. Soda no Kibi, by the way, one of my favorite words to say. Just
we're masters at it now. I remember the first time we could not pronounce that.
Figure it out. But Soda no Kibi, no, it's great. But so those two variants specifically have been seen more and more often. We wrote another blog this week, and this one was from Michael Marriott, former Shadow Talk co-host / host / guest. He's done it all. He's a good man. But he wrote a blog this week about the Nemty ransomware, which has been seen being distributed via the Rig exploit kit, along with Soda no Kibi. And I mean, it's interesting to see that exploit kits are still alive and kicking. You don't hear about them too often, but we have seen Nemty being delivered via that. And again, it's just interesting that all these kind of things are tying together. But another note on that is that it's thought that Soda no Kibi is a kind of a follow-up successor to GandCrab, and potentially may have been either developed by somebody close to somebody who developed the GandCrab ransomware variant. If
not a direct successor, it could be considered a successor, like in spirit.
In spirit, yeah. A spiritual successor. So people have found kind of that there's similarities in the code specifically, and then also in the timing of it just seemed a little bit too close to being coincidental, because it pretty much came on the scene right after GandCrab supposedly shut down. We will have links to all the blogs within the show notes, so be sure to go check that out. So that was the NCSC report. It's a good report. I would definitely go check it out. They probably covered 5 total topics, and we only went through 2 of them. So, I don't want to spend the entire podcast, which we definitely could, on all 5 of them. But be sure to check out our blog, and then also go check out there's links to everything in the blogs and the show notes. So go check that out. Okay, so next up, this one is pretty interesting. I think specifically for you and I, because you and I are pretty close to it right now. But this B.Wanted character. So just to give kind of like a level set, a couple weeks ago, there was a story that Brian Krebs had reported on, and essentially a user on a dark web forum. At the time, it was unknown, it was unreported which dark web forum it was. But basically, on a dark web forum, this threat actor was offering to sell access to a federal contractor who managed 20 plus different federal agencies, kind of managed their IT systems was the implication. And that would be obviously a very big deal. So
considering the nature of those organizations.
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, they start listing them out, and they're like DOJ, DHS, very high profile. I mean, the highest of profile agencies within the U.S. government. So over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of had a chance to look into that deeper and find out some more information about it. And maybe we'll write a blog on it or do something on it. But I just wanted to talk about it on the podcast because we've been working on it and just kind of wanted to share what we found. Again, we were looking into this specific threat actor and just kind of who they are and theories around them that we're thinking about, but it's this user B.Wanted. So they've been around for a few years.
On a couple of different forums too, not just the one, but they've been around on several different forums, both Russian and English language forums. They frequently posted in both languages. It's interesting because they appeared to take long breaks between when they would be posting, and sometimes after those long breaks, they'd come back and suddenly the content of their post is just something completely different to what they used to be posting.
Totally different topic, which is not something that you typically see.
No.
Like typically you have threat actors that are very focused on selling credit cards.
Yeah. And they'll only do that and maybe dabble in a couple of other things. But when I'm talking about different, I'm talking about going from advertising like an essay writing service to advertising network access to,
or just like that essay writing service.
Yeah.
So originally, what we saw B.Wanted doing on this forum that we were looking at specifically was that they were looking for malware. They're looking for malware. They're looking for people to help write malware as well. So that was interesting in itself, right? And then they go away for a while, come back, and then they're basically trying to shill their essay writing affiliate links.
Yeah, it was like an affiliate link for it.
And it was just very weird. I mean, like a lot of people were doing it. Like it's not like they were any unique in any way, but it's just like, why? What is the point behind that? Go away again, and this kind of continues on and off. But then they come back and they're looking and they're selling credit card details, like I was saying before. They're selling basically credit card numbers, and that's a common thing that we see from a lot of different threat actors.
And they leave again, and they come back, and suddenly they have access to the supplier of the U.S. government.
Yeah, they come back and they come back full force and basically offering all these different accesses to like the one that was reported on with the federal contractor, but then also they were offering different accesses to healthcare providers. They were offering accesses to a Canadian department store that had been around for I think 70 years or something like that. Like that's just what they were posting about. And like all these different things. And I mean, mainly focused, I think, in the US. Oh, there were offering a
couple of ones, like there were a few in the UAE.
Yeah, they were offering hotel access in Dubai. They didn't, and just to mention, they didn't mention any of these companies by name.
Except for the government contractor.
They
didn't even mention the government contractor's name. They mentioned the...
Brian Krebs had reached out and found, doing his journalism reporting stuff. He found out who the federal contractor was. But yeah, so no, they have not said like who they are.
I mean, that's pretty standard in these dark web forums, right? They're not going to blow their cover essentially if they're going to try to sell these for a significant amount of money.
You would hope not.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they do, but
yeah.
Smarter ones typically don't.
Yeah. So, you and I were kind of having different conversations throughout the week, this week specifically, trying to just theorize about who and why they're doing what they're doing and, doing our intel analysis stuff. So I just kind of wanted to run through a couple of the different like theories that we were thinking about. It's entirely possible that this is just a threat actor.
It is what it is. And we're just looking into it too much.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's very possible. Like, obviously it's our job to look into it, but
there have been weirder things on the dark web or on criminal forums.
Yeah. So it could just be that it's a threat actor that is just selling the things that they come across that they have access to in their travels and their daily whatever they're doing, whether it be credit card access or network access or anything like that. There's another theory that kind of you, me, the rest of the extended team have been kind of thinking about. So why don't you share that one?
Yeah. So we were also thinking that it's possible that it's not just one individual that's linked to this account, but rather a larger group that uses the alias whenever they need to sell something or look into something in specific. Having an active user profile on a forum that's traditionally difficult to gain access to or to gain reputation in is pretty valuable, right? So if they have that one persona that they can use to peddle these different services or different products, then that could be something that could be of use to them. So
it's interesting if you think about it like I mean, like we always equate it to the real world, right? So if you think about like an Amazon account, right? And you're buying a used product. Are you more likely to buy from the fresh, brand new user account that just now created their account, they have no ratings or anything like that? Or are you more willing to buy from the person who's been on Amazon for 8 years and they have 5 stars and all that? Like, I think that's very applicable to the way that darknet markets and forums work.
Or it's like a shared user for one organization or a group of individuals that they all share access to that, and that's just the one output that you see.
Right. And then the one other theory that we've kind of shot off of that theory, your theory, is that it's possible that the alias has basically been traded among various criminal
again, because having
groups.
That kind of reputation is very valuable.
So it's not that it's just one group that's been using it for their various wares that they've come across and that they're selling, but actually it's being traded among different groups that have different motivations and different accesses and stuff like that. So there's just a couple of different theories that we were thinking about. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I was just looking at it again today, and they posted, basically they were offering the Canadian department store access for like $100,000, which, I mean, it's a pretty hefty chunk of money.
Did they mention how much they were offering for it before, or is this a?
Well, no. So the original post, they were offering it for $100,000. 2 days ago, they posted saying that they'll drop it down $10,000 to 90, like total. This user is active, and they're actively selling things on this market. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because, you know, whether or not this threat actor is legitimate, it's still kind of in question. It does seem like the federal contractor access being offered may have been legit. In the original reporting, they were talking about how some of the credentials that that B.Wanted was offering were legit, but that the screenshots that they were providing as proof were not legit, or that they were just old and super old and on a test system, and it didn't basically imply what they were trying to make it imply. But all that being said, credentials are credentials. If you have access and you can prove it to somebody, then somebody's going to buy it and somebody's going to try it. Definitely something to keep an eye on, and let's just see where it goes. You know, let's just see what happens. So yeah, so I think that's it. Is there anything else that you want to cover, Alex?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
I also wanted to mention that we have a full brand new setup. We'll take a picture of it today, but it's just me and Alex at this new big table. We have a big table. We're getting set up for some exciting new things for Shadow Talk. You'll see it over the next few weeks, but just like how we, got some new great sounding equipment, maybe we'll have a couple more surprises over the next, I don't know, maybe like a month or two, but we'll see when all that comes out. But yeah. And then also be sure to go check out the intelligence summary, our Digital Shadows weekly intelligence summary, produced by our intelligence teams here at Digital Shadows. You can go to resources.digitalshadows.com to find all those, links to everything. All right, well, let's wrap up with a question of the week for this week.
Did I really just forget that melody?
Which?
That's
some new meme that I really don't understand. And it has been going around the office like wildfire. So, Alex, question of the week. What is your favorite show on Netflix right now?
So if we're talking about favorite show on Netflix right now, I guess I'll just go with what I'm watching right now.
What's a new release on Netflix are enjoying watching?
Well, right now we're going through Twin Peaks, which is definitely not a new release. It's been around for a while, but it is on Netflix. It is old school, and it's very good. So that would have been my answer if we're talking about what we're watching right now. In terms of new releases, well, I watched the most recent season of 13 Reasons Why. I finished that a couple of days ago.
That was the last season.
Yeah, season 3.
Was it good?
It wasn't as good. I know a lot of people hated on it. It definitely wasn't as good as the first season,
Oh yeah,
it's still
first season was really good.
Of course.
Okay, solid answers. I'm just disappointed that you didn't say Mindhunter, because that was my favorite up until 2 weeks ago when we finished watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I finished that a couple of weeks ago, so it's not really fresh in my mind right now.
Yeah, so I'm watching two different shows on Netflix right now. I'm watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is an anime that Travis Randall, who's been on the podcast before, has talked about at length and got me to start watching that. And it's pretty good.
I need to start that.
I like it. It's good. It's very weird, but it's good.
Weird is good.
Yeah. And then I'm also watching Unbelievable, which I won't go into because it's kind of a dark subject, but it's really good and it's brand new. It's based on a true story. It's kind of like a crime thriller,
true crime type thing,
sort of true crime. Yeah, but it's really good. But yes, if you like true crime, then yeah, go check that out. But Mindhunter would have been my all-time.
Mindhunter was good.
I love Mindhunter. Yeah. It's just so good. All right, well, that will do it for us for this week. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Am I really just still a guest at this point, or can I be a co-host? When do I get promoted to co-host?
When you get promoted to co-host? I don't know. Maybe here pretty soon.
Maybe soon. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe. Thank you, guest. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Netflix. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.